Boca Raton, this is your local real estate market update. Let me fill you in on what's happening as of January 2024. I'm Larry Mastrapiri, broker owner of the Mastrapiri Group based right here in Boca Raton. Let's get into all the data. So let's start by looking at the average sale price data and compare December of 2023 to December of 2022. This is wild. We're seeing a 12% year-over-year price increase. So what do you guys think? Do you think property values are up 12% compared to the same time last year? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. But now let's dig a little bit deeper. We just looked at December of 2023 and compared it to December of 2022. That's 1 month compared to another month. But what if we compare the whole year of 2023 to the whole year of 2022? The average sales price growth, when we look at it this way, is 6%. The average home in Boca sold for $842,000 in 2022. And in 2023, it sold for $892,000. This is real growth. These are big numbers. So that was the average data we just reviewed. But we have to remember here in Boca Raton especially, it's important to cross-check our average data with the median data because random large deals can definitely skew this analysis in a way that prevents us from really understanding what's going on in the core market. So if we look at the median sales price data and again compare December of 2023 to December of 2022, we see a very large 10% year-over-year price increase. That is substantial. And if we do the similar approach and compare 2023 as a whole to 2022 as a whole, we see a slightly less 8% year-over-year price increase. And in 2022, the median sales price was about $525,000 as compared to 2023, which was $565,000. So what does all this mean in real life? How does it impact you specifically? Well, I think overall, this data suggests that prices did not go down here in Boca Raton over the past year while we were dealing with all these interest rate increases, insurance increases, etc. And I think it's just really a question now of how much did the property values grow? Is it that 6% number on the low end? Is it that 12% number on the high end? And it's going to vary depending on the asset type someone may be selling, whether it's condo, townhome, single family home. And then if you dig a little deeper here, you can see that the pending data also suggests that prices are probably going to continue to grow as we enter early 2024. But there's other data that we can review that will give us a better understanding or a deeper understanding of what's going on in our local Boca Raton real estate market. If we look at the sale to original list price ratio data, this is interesting. We see in early 2022 that properties were selling at or above their original asking price. But as we rolled through 2022 and into 2023, we started to see properties trade between 7 and 9% below the original asking price. So we dug a little deeper and we said, well, what was the historical sale to original list price ratio? And what we found was that between 2015 and 2019, this was very normal for a property to sell at 8% on average less than their original asking price. So we'll see how things proceed here, but this looks pretty normal. Let's get into the average days on market data. This is a good one. It's pretty informative. It really helps us understand if our market is slowing or accelerating. If you're new to the market update and or our channel, let me quickly define days on market for you and how it's calculated. But first, if you're enjoying this content, hit the like button below and subscribe if you want to see more videos just like this. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments about all this information I'm throwing at you, so drop that below. Now, days on market, how it's calculated. It starts counting the day the property goes active on the MLS, and it stops counting the day the property is listed under contract on the MLS. It's not until the day the property actually closes. That's a specific nuanced detail that some people misunderstand. Now, when we look at the average cumulative days on market data and compare December of 2023 to December of 2022, we've seen an 8% increase. The average home in Boca Raton will be under contract in about 57 days. This is an interesting point though. Since 2022, as we discussed, days on market have increased. But while we were in 2023, we started to see things level off. In 2023, the days on market were hovering around the 50s, which signals that the market has healthy demand for the amount of inventory that we're putting on the market. Now, if we look a little deeper and do what we did earlier, which is compare 2023 as a whole to 2022 as a whole, we see that days on market went from 35 to 56, which is a 60% increase. As for the future though, typically properties sell at their highest velocity between February and May. So we'll see what the winter months bring and see how things change. But it's important to note that in recent history, between 2015 and 2019, properties typically sat on the market for about 80 days before going under contract. So 57, 56 days on market is low relative to recent history. And I think you would agree that selling in 56 days or less than 2 months is a pretty quick sale. The number of listings graph helps us understand current and anticipated inventory in our local real estate market. And the trend historically here over the past year or so has suggested that low inventory is kind of the new norm. But in recent months, we've started to see inventory climb a bit, which is interesting. Let's dig in. As of December 2023, we've sold about 280 homes here in our real estate market in Boca Raton, which is about 1% less than the same time last year, which is roughly about the same. And if you look at the trend line, you can see that this has been pretty consistent over the course of 2023. As mentioned earlier, existing home sales data is what we typically call a lagging indicator. And why is that? It's because the majority of transactions involve a mortgage, which typically take 30 to 60 days to close. So any closing, as an example, that happens today typically reflects a contract that was signed 30 to 60 days ago. This is the data point I am watching closely in our local real estate market. And if you're in the market for a new home or thinking about selling, you should keep an eye on this too. As of January 1st, the inventory on the market is up by about 21% compared to the same time last year. Now, it's still at historical lows. It's still about 23% less than December of 2019 as an example. But this low inventory has been historically putting upward pressure on pricing. So if this dynamic changes where we start adding a lot more inventory to the market, prices could be affected here. And it's also important to look at the trend line when we're talking about this. Inventory has been relatively low throughout 2023, but as we entered the fall, we started to see it climb dramatically. So we'll see what the winter months bring here if this trend continues. Not too much has changed as far as the under contract data goes. 2% less homes went under contract in December of 2023 as compared to December of 2022. But what I am looking at closely is as of August 2023, each month after that, we started to see less pending sales. So the trend line suggests that less pending sales will follow the following month here in January and February. So we'll see if this trend continues or if it was just a seasonal thing. Also, remember, as we mentioned earlier, under contract data is a leading indicator. So this could suggest slowing demand possibly. While inventory is starting to climb, there are some signals here that the market may be getting a little softer possibly, but when you look at the sales price data, that doesn't seem to show up. Now let's talk absorption rate. The absorption rate shows how long the current number of properties on the market would last at the current rate of sales. Said another way, if no new properties were added to the market and sales continued at a steady pace, the absorption rate indicates the number of months required to sell all the properties on the market. The absorption rate trend here in Boca Raton suggests that the market is changing and has changed since last year. If we look at December of 2023's absorption rate, we see that it's 5.11. If we compare that to December of 2022, we see that that was 3.56. Very different. This means we are in very neutral territory. We're trending from a seller's market to a buyer's market. But right now, we're still kind of in that almost neutral, leaning seller's market territory. And, I think that's pretty fine. And if we look at recent history, 2015 to 2019, we can see that the absorption rate was in the fives in most of that period. So this is very normal. So what's the takeaway from all this data we just reviewed? What's the conclusion? let me give you my personal forecast on what's to come here in 2024. It feels like, based on the data we reviewed, we're going to continue to see year over year price growth. Doesn't feel like prices are coming down. And that's in spite of this major affordability crisis that everyone's facing here in South Florida, in spite of interest rates remaining relatively high, insurance costs going to the moon, as an example. It also feels like a lot of the data we reviewed reflects the 2015, 2019 era. So it feels like we're trending into this more normalized market than we've seen in some time. So it feels like things might level off a little bit. And even though the inventory has come up quite a bit in the past few months, it's still relatively low compared to the 2015, 2019 era. And it feels like if the inventory does continue to climb, there's enough demand to absorb it. So we'll see how the market reacts to all these new changes, and we'll see what happens here in the future. Thank you guys for tuning in to another one of our market updates. I'm Larry Mastrapuri, broker owner of the Mastrapuri Group, based right here in Boca Raton, and I'll see you on the next one.